Welcome back to Magoo's Reviews. Hope everybody's having a blessed day. So this is my review for Miss McMahon, episode 3, the Netflix documentary series. This one's titled Screwjob. So, one thing I will say, I really am enjoying this series. Same time, like I said, this is stuff that's new to me, stuff I've already known previously. But always, like I said, it's a good refresh, and it's just a nice, really production how Netflix is putting the whole series together. But it's titled Screwjob. As soon as I saw that, I said, all right, I know where this is going. I know where this is going, I know what's going to lead to, you know what I mean? But starting out, you see, it starts off with the ladies champion back in the 80s, Wendy Richter. Now, Wendy Richter, she was a female champion back in the 80s, but in this one, Mr. Mann talks about how her and Wendy were kind of having issues in the locker room and stuff like that, in the back room, and she didn't want to give up the belt. So he was like, well, if you don't want to give up the belt, I'll make you give up the belt. And he said that his father told him, he says, get them in the ring first, then figure it out. So that's what I said. Okay, it's kind of like preluding to what was going to come later on in the episode. As you see, she's in the match with the Fabulous Moolah, and then as she's in the fight, as she's in the wrestling match, she gets rolled over. Ref counts 1, 2, 3. With her kicking out at 1, still counts 1, 2, 3. Rings the bell. She loses the belt because she didn't want to give up. And that's Vince's whole thing. Is like, it's just business. But if you ain't gonna want to play ball, then I'm about to take it from you, right? So it's like, okay, we see this is going. Now it also goes into the transition from the 80s into the 90s, right? The big man era. So with the whole steroid allegation, everything like that, and Hulk Hogan going up to testify and all that, how he backed Vince and everything. Vince was found not guilty, with the whole steroid allegations and everything like that. He says, did Vince McMahon ever sell steroids to you? No. He's at the same time, he didn't say that we couldn't take it. You know what I mean? So even Tony Atlas said the same thing. Like, no, he was like, I was taking steroids before I met Vince McMahon. So a lot of professional wrestlers in the 80s and stuff like that, a lot of the big man era, with your Hulk Hogan's, Ultimate Warriors, all those guys, man, yeah, they were on it. You know what I mean? Let's keep it a buck. They were on it. You know what I mean? At the same time, you see a transition into the new generation. That's the generation that I grew up on, really watching wrestling. Now, I remember watching the 80s and stuff like that, when I got a little bit older going back, but the, early 90s and stuff like that was the generation I really remember. And like Bret Hart, that's when he really started speaking in like himself. Razor Ramon, Scott Hall, he passed away, RIP to him, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Kevin Nash, Diesel, Shawn Michaels, the Heartbreak Kid, my favorite wrestler of all time. So it really transitioned, and even Shawn Michaels said it, like, you saw that transition from the Hogan era, you know what I mean? Because Hogan, he was gone at that time, into, the Bret Hart, who Bret Hart was kind of, the leader of that generation, you know what I mean? Then you had guys like Doink the Clown. I don't know if y'all remember Doink the Clown, everything like that. So yeah, man, it was really cool. Like I said, it's like a history lesson, you know what I'm saying? So like, that's what I really am enjoying about it. Yeah, so like I say, you see Bret Hart speak on that. And also, now here's the cool part. You see WCW kind of rise to prominence at that point. Now, at that point, I think WCW already had like Sting on their roster. They already had Ric Flair. I'm going to say the Steiner brothers was already on their roster. So, they had a roster of legends already. You know what I'm saying? But you see that Vince McMahon, he was looking for that next, before he settled with Bret, before he settled with Bret, he was kind of going with Lex Luger. But Lex Luger was okay. He didn't have the charisma of Hulk Hogan or anything like that, but the Lex Express, he trying to be America's new hero. It didn't work. So you see Eric Bischoff was like, yo, man, Ted Turner and I having a conversation. He's like, man, what's it going to take for us to keep people in WWE? He's like, man, they got Monday nights, we're on Saturday nights. He says, Ted Turner at that point said, without hesitation, looks at the board and says, hey, give Eric 2 hours Monday night against WWE. And he's just like, what? He's like, it's absolutely funny. But at that point, Eric said, you know what, man? He's like, you know what? We got Hulk Hogan. All right, now Macho Man Randy Savage is available. So he's like, okay, now we're getting a roster. We're getting some people. You know what I mean? So their first Monday night, it was like in the mall or something like that. From what I can remember, you know what I mean? But you see, he was like, at that point, he was like, you see Lex Luger come out, which nobody was expecting, because he says, everybody thought Lex was still under contract. And he told Lex, man, just keep it under wraps, just show up at, Nitro and everything. Like, what is he doing here? That whole thing, you know what I mean? So WCW at that point was really rising to prominence, man. They started getting a roster under them and everything like that. And, Vince, at that point, like they said, Paul Heyman, you see other people in the Undertaker, like, Vince is like, never let him see you sweat or anything like something like that, But Vince, WCW was really getting under his skin, because then he started taking shots at Ted Turner and everything like that. And the owner of USA, she's friends with Ted, so she's like, nah, cut that out. You know what I mean? So you're starting to see WCW really getting under his skin from time to time. You know what I mean? And he's not liking that at all, because what Eric would do is WCW was live. So in WWE at the time, they were still taped. So he would sit there and read off the script of what happened in WWE. He would sit there and read off the matches so that way you wouldn't even watch it. I said, hey, that's some grimy stuff. It's funny, but it's absolutely grimy. And I know that got under Vince's skin. No matter how much he wants to say, like, I know that's the stuff, like, if you see him, you want to fight him. You know what I mean? Because he messing with your money. He messing with your bottom dollar at that point. WCW at that point, they were beating WWE in the ratings, man. Especially when you see Sky Hall, you know, Razor Ramon and Nash make that transition over to WCW. Now, this is when the whole Click thing comes up. When the Click, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, Kevin Nash, Sky Hall, and, you know, Sean Waltman, X-Pac, you know what I mean? That's somebody that they really didn't talk about, which was, I was kind of confused why they really didn't speak on him in this episode, but they all were part of the Click. And how WWE, before they left, they all were in the ring and everything like that, you know, hugging it out. Then you see Scott, you know, Kevin go to WCW, Sean and Triple H are still there, and Vince was hot because he was like, at that point, it was still kayfabe. You know what I mean? Kayfabe is the whole thing of, you know, still staying in character even outside of the ring. Like Undertaker really talks about the importance of kayfabe and stuff like that. And how, especially in the 80s, like that was really big thing as far as kayfabe. You know what I mean? But how they kind of just broke that. You know what I mean? Kind of like said they opened up the curtain to the back and let, you know, the public see, you know, what really goes on. Because I mean, Triple H said, he said, "Hey Vince, you know, the times are changing." He says, Vince said at the point he didn't want to change the time. He's like, okay, I understand what you're saying, but you still got to suffer, because he was supposed to win King of the Ring, but he didn't. Like I said, just great stuff, man. Just absolutely great stuff. So now you see, at that point, you see WCW rising to promise. The outsiders over there. Now here's when it really, now I remember this, man. Bash at the Beach, man. Bash at the Beach, it was Sting, Luger, Macho Man against Scott Hall, Kevin Nash at that point, right? This when the outsiders coming over WCW, and people are like, what are they doing here? Because they made it seem so real, even though they were at WCW, that they were just invading. So they have a big match. Luger gets hurt. He gets taken out the ring. They're like, who's the third man? He's like, the third man is here and he's ready. That's what Scott Hall and Kevin Nash are saying. You see Hulk Hogan come out. Man, this was crazy. Hulk Hogan comes out. Scott Hall, Nash clear the ring. They look, everybody's cheering. It's Hogan. He's the hero. You see Macho Man lying on the ground. Hogan gives Macho Man the leg drop. Boom. You could just hear the silence in the ring. I mean, in the stands. I mean, like, it was just like the wind got sucked out of everybody. Like, whoa, Hulk Hogan's heel. Hulk Hogan turned. You know what I mean? And even after that happened, you know, Hogan even said it like, man, there was this moment where him, Scott, and Nash were like, all right, man, there's no cops around. There's no bodyguards. If these people want to bum rush us, it's a wrap. Because at that point, man, wrestling was still, I mean, it's different nowadays with the fans, but, you know, man, fans really took it serious back then, man. You know what I mean? Like, Hulk Hogan was the hero, though. He was like the Superman. You know what I mean? Like, he's the hero. You know what I mean? Superman's better than Hulk Hogan. But you know, just that whole turn, man. And then that's when you see the NWO come to prominence, bro. And that's when WCW was just destroying WWE at that point, man. When the NWO was there. And, you know, that's when, yeah, like I said, WWE, they're still in that phase. So now you kind of see over there with them, you see Bret Hart still, you know, kind of holding that flag, holding it strong for them. Then you had Undertaker there, you got Shawn Michaels, you know what I mean? And then you had Stone Cold was in the background. He was in the background at the time, you know what I mean? He was kind of beefing with Bret. WrestleMania 13, one of my favorite wrestling matches of all time, Stone Cold and Bret Hart. But also, you know what I mean, Rocky Maivia. But he was still Rocky Maivia. You know, Rocky sucks. Fans really didn't care for him that much. So now, that's when you see the whole, you know, screw job come. Because Bret Hart, you know, Vince is like, hey, man, you know, stay. I can't lose you and everything like that. But Bret was leaving. Bret was leaving. Now you got the whole situation with the screw job, right? Which is still, to this day, crazy, man. Still a crazy, crazy thing, you know. So now you see Bret Hart not wanting to give up Survivor Series against Shawn Michaels. You know what I mean? He didn't want to give up the belt. Survivor Series 1997, Survivor Series. So now they're in the match. Vince is like, yo, I got to get it off him. He got to get the belt. He know Bret's going to be pissed. Him and Shawn have actually, it's really a good match when you watch the match itself. Bret and Shawn, as much as they didn't like each other, I think they had great chemistry in the ring. You know what I mean? Very great chemistry in the ring. So the match is going on. As you see, Shawn's about to put Bret in the sharpshooter and everything like that. As he's putting Bret in the sharpshooter, you see Vince at the ringside yelling at the ref, yelling, ring the bell, ring the bell. You see him ring the bell, and Bret's just, because I remember there was a Bret Hart documentary back in the 90s that was going on. I remember watching that documentary after this happened, you know what I mean, around this time, man. And just that locker room, the atmosphere in there, they're like, no, what happened? You know, everybody, people like, I cleared. As soon as I saw that, like, yo, oh, you know what's about to break loose. It's about to go crazy right now. You see Bret just fuming. He spits on Vince, spits him right in the eye, crashing the monitors. Shawn was doing a great job acting, because Vince told Shawn and Triple H, you guys can't tell nobody, lie to their faces that you didn't know. You know what I mean? Even when Bret Hart's in the locker room with his son, he asked Shawn, like, yo, did you know about that? Sean said, yeah, he probably would have killed him on camera. Sean was like, nah, I swear I didn't know, even though at the time he did know what was going on. It's, man, that, even looking at that today is like, whew, the energy in there, man. I couldn't imagine it, you know. So Vince was like, man, I gotta give Bret what he wants. He knew he had to get punched. I think he said Undertaker was in there. And here's the thing, I said it before in my earlier reviews. Undertaker was kind of like, he took that role from Andre the Giant as like the Don in the locker room, you know. Even though you had your Shawn Michaels, your Bret Harts, you know, all those other guys, they still respected Undertaker. They still respect the Undertaker. He was like the Don in the locker room. They just respected him for who he was. So Undertaker was in there, and they said Bret Hart hit Vince so hard he just laid him out. Which, you know, Bret Hart gave his all for WWE. He gave his all, everything for him, you know what I mean? And then Shawn, even you can see Shawn Michaels kind of emotional in it and everything like that, especially around that time. He was like, even though what was going on in WCW, I still owe my loyalty to Vince because I put him through so much, especially around that time. Shawn Michaels was a you know what in the 90s, you know what I mean? So you can see him getting emotional, you know, about it and everything like that. And then you see Bret Hart make that transition over to WCW, you know what I'm saying? So that was a time, man. That was a time when the NWO was just hitting. WWE just had that incident with Bret Hart. And then it's going to lead to the Mr. McMahon, you know, who's probably the greatest villain in WWE history. You know, the Mr. McMahon character. Vince just like, nah, that's it. You know what I mean? I had enough. You know what I mean? Bret Hart, screw Bret Hart. That whole situation. And then we all know who comes from that. Just the great, I mean, you got your protagonist, antagonist, you know, with Stone Cold Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, you know, you see The Rock come. I mean, that's when, whew, man, just great times. I mean, the Monday Night Wars was amazing, man. So I know it's going to lead to that in episode 4. Yeah, so I mean, all around, man, I really did enjoy this episode 3 for, you know, the Mr. McMahon's, you know, screw job. Like I said, it's stuff that I already knew, you know what I mean? I already knew, I grew up in that time, but at the same time, it's just always good to see it again. So please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment in the comment section. Hope everybody has a blessed day. I'll see you guys soon.